my name's Ruth. I'm the one at the back of the bug house waving a blue glove, and I'm one of the little band of eco gardeners at St Mary's in Liscard. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our gardening project. So our gardening project evolved from our various groups for local families and is one of the few good things to have come out of the COVID pandemic. After those last 3 months of lockdown in early 2021, when schools were closed and learning was all online, we knew our families would be desperate for some face-to-face activities. And we also knew it would have to be outside initially. So we used funding from the council's Road to Recovery grant to buy children's gloves, trowels, watering cans and some tools. And we cleaned out and organised our dusty old gardening store, which you can see there on the right. We'd sadly lost 2 much-loved members during the pandemic, and we raised money to buy memorial benches for them, made by Tony from Wirral, which our helpers painted to keep in the garden in their memory. Our gloves and trowels were well used from the start, with socially distanced tree planting with Anne Litherland in Central Park and weeding in Vale Park when our numbers could increase to 15 outside. So we met each week after school in the garden at the front of church, weeding and planting and painting our benches. The front gardens, you can see on the left, has always been well used. Here's a picture of the teddy bears picnic from years ago. But we began to realise that we were sitting on a huge untapped resource in terms of the acre of ground surrounding the church. There's the plan on the right. 3/4 of which was neglected and unusable, completely overgrown with brambles, nettles and ivy. And this in an area where few families have a garden, and green space is such a precious commodity. So it was already a haven for wildlife, but we still have, for example, that huge overgrown thorny bush and a massive sparrow colony living there. And our very knowledgeable botanist friend, Hilary Ash, kindly spent time with us, showing us what was growing, what we could get rid of, and what to keep to encourage biodiversity and wildlife. The children and staff from Liscard Primary School just next door were also keen to get outdoor for activities. And each week, children came down to plant, donated spring bulbs in the grass or tomatoes and other veg along a sunny wall, and made bird feeders out of plastic bottles, which are still going strong 3 years on, you can see on the right there. But it wasn't just children who needed to venture out after lockdown. The lovely Carol Seary from Wirral Environmental Network offered us a free gardening course for people aged over 55. So in September, we advertised and leafleted. We had about 15 coming, half from the church and half from the local community. They so loved the group that most decided to stay. And here we are on the right, after making Christmas decorations from giant fir cones. Carol taught us how to compost, grow your own veg, and so much more. And that was the start of our Monday gardening group. But to do any of it, we needed space. We had no money to pay anyone to clear the garden. So we decided to advertise on Facebook. And in the autumn of 2021, we had 3 community bramble clearing days. The Monday group all helped, plus various people who'd heard via Facebook. We borrowed tools and hedge trimmers, and a gardening company donated builders' bags, gloves and goggles. And trees were rescued from ivy and spaces were opened up. So with some space cleared, Miss Swaby from Liscard Primary School, there in the fabulous yellow hat, had ordered free saplings from the Woodland Trust. And together we planted a native wildlife hedge between the church and their school, which you can see through the fence. And Anne Litherland from the local Ham community garden came and helped us to plant it. In the new year, with some space at last, we decided to develop a grow your own area. Annie Merry, Director of Faiths for Change, had been part of a really very useful webinar over lockdown on using church land. Her project had been at St Martin's in the city in Liverpool, and she gave us really helpful advice, such as tackling the project in manageable stages so as not to be overwhelmed. We had no money, and all our planters and old decking were donated, apart from some giant wooden pallets, which we got from Reciprocity Wirral for a few pounds. Paint was donated by a retired painter and decorator who came to our Monday group. And in March 2022, the Grow Your Own area was opened by Bishop Mark of Chester when he came to make a wormery with a group of school eco-rangers. It was important to us that our planters were wheelchair accessible. The gardening member who donated all the decking uses a mobility scooter. But with all that height, they do take an awful lot of filling, which is useful for all our garden waste and prunings. And of course, the fun bit is compressing it before a foot or so of topsoil is added. The first year, we harvested masses of tomatoes and made loads of green tomato chutney. Last year, we harvested runner beans, rainbow chard, potatoes, radishes, garlic, and several large marrows. These are all photos of one of our volunteers' children. We put all our photos on a closed Facebook group, but of course, we make sure we have to have permission for showing anything more publicly. So we made masses of marrow and ginger jam and painted our squash with a happy face. For a happy harvest, we have to help things grow. So we, for potting compost, we regularly use our 5 compost bins, which were donated by the council several years ago to households. And we have bought 2 water butts, especially useful in the summer. So some things do cost, and we have been really lucky to get funding from the Community Fund of Viola and Merseyside Recycling and Waste Authority, which means we can pay for topsoil, plants, refreshments, specialist help when we need it, and servicing lawnmowers. I think applications for this year's fund are still open until the 7th of March, which is now called the Zero Waste Fund. Zara at Faiths for Change is great at circulating funding opportunities, as is Wirral Environmental Network. So the fund fits well with us because we recycle everything, either for crafts or in the garden. Last summer term, we had a small gardening club after school for a few families, and they painted more planters we had made and planted loads of veg. Some half terms or holidays, we do a little activity too for families. But it's not just about children. The last few years, we've led a gardening activity with something to take home on several local life skills courses run by CAP, when they have a session on well-being and learning a new hobby. One or two have stayed on to help with the garden. This is our herb wheel with one of our life skills members. We've been very lucky that a group of staff from our funders have helped us out on several volunteer days. Often companies will give staff a paid half day to volunteer in the year, and it's well worth asking around. There's no way we could have tackled the back of the church on our own. The brambles and ivy were completely out of control, growing into the guttering and even the central heating vents. The 2 girls on the right who organised the Viola volunteers were particularly proud of freeing up this heating vent and making space for our wild nature area. So we protect certain areas for our wildlife. These donated ropes from a local climbing centre cordon off our wildflower area, where we have teasels growing 6 foot tall at the back. Of course, wildlife needs water, and Tristan from Wirral Wildlife Landscaping has helped us to make 2 water features out of old barrels, plus lots of bird boxes and a huge bug hotel with the school eco rangers. He even made a hedgehog home at the bottom. You can see the hole there on the right. So we're now at the stage of making a natural barrier with our homemade planters from the area where young children can play safely into the wild nature area at the back, where there will still be plenty of brambles and nettles. Nature can get out of control, and this giant pampas with its razor-sharp leaves has been a hazard for years. We were able to buy an amazing root slayer spade, which has been great at digging this out and all our bramble roots. And we have a lovely clear area now to make room for a quiet, reflective space with benches and scented plants. So we're currently in winter and this area looks a bit bare, but all the bramble roots have been dug out, weed membrane laid, wood chip from a huge overhanging tree we had to have pollarded, and a wildlife hedge and 4 donated fruit trees can grow freely. With the addition in future of maybe some flowering shrubs or quirky planters from our old tyres that we've been painting. I'd like to finish with a picture of our Viola Community Day, sharing food together, which we love to do. We found that the local gardening communities and networks are incredibly generous with their help and support. And for anyone starting out, we'd love to share what we've learned. So we have 3 folders on the table at the back, one with safety tips, gardening waiver form, risk assessments, and the odd article about people who've helped us. Please write down your email on the board and we'd be happy to send you whatever you would like to adapt or get ideas from. The second folder has ideas of activities we've done with children, and again we can email you copies. And the third folder has our favourite tried and tested recipes for soups, cakes and preserves, all made from veg. Please just take a copy. And lastly, help yourself to seeds. There are little envelopes, pop a seed in and write the name on. And please call round any Monday morning, have a cuppa or stay for soup and have a look round. There are leaflets on the table with my number on if you want to let us know you're coming. So from all of our gardening group, thank you so much for listening.